Hello friends, I'm Saket Bansal and I welcome you all to our webinar on requirement prioritization process. And as usual, before I start my web event, I usually conduct polls to know the audience. So today also I have two questions for you, and these questions will help me to visualize a kind of expectation you might be having from this particular session. So my first question is that, are you looking for some certification in coming 2 months, 3 months time? Because usually since I'm into a certification business, I get many clients who are primarily focusing for some certification. So that's an input which I usually seek before I go ahead. Interestingly, I'm finding good people interested in PMI PBA. That's good. I would be sharing this result with you so you also know who are the audience, because that helps you to you also in visualizing the kind of discussion we might be having during Q&A breaks. So okay, a few more to vote. Cool. So I'm closing the poll and here are the results. So I'm sharing it with you and you can see that we have 30% people who are interested in PMP, and then 35 PMI ACP, and 20% we have an audience who are interested in PMI PBA. Great. So that makes sense. And let me know about your project role. So what kind of role are you playing in your project? Whichever you find is the nearest one, you can pick up. Project manager, project leader, team leader, or any QA lead, all can and put into a project leader. People who are doing business analysis or product management may pick one of the role out of business analyst or product management. And somebody who is working as a contributor, who is working as a team member, may pick up a team member role. So it gives us an idea that, okay, who are the audience? Yeah, where the Scrum Master will fall in, project leader makes a good choice for Scrum Masters, I guess. So they can put their vote into that area. Great. So this is done, and we have majority of project managers attending this particular session. So we have 54% project managers. Good. And we do have business analysts and product owners and then project leaders. Great. So so this is an agenda for our session. We will be talking about requirements. We will be getting into the prioritization process, and then we will get into tools and techniques which can be used for prioritization, and then we will have a quick review of PMI PBA. So I understand that there was some delay in the presentation reaching to you, but I hope it's done now. So this is the fourth segment we would be going through, and I would be taking Q&A break after the two segments are over, requirement and prioritization process, and then the second Q&A break will come after tools and technique, and finally we will have a Q&A session once at the end of the event. So before we get into prioritization, we need to understand what is this requirement is all about. So how the PMBOK defines it. PMBOK looks at an approach where it says that a condition or capability that is required to be present in product or service or a result to satisfy a contract or other formally imposed specification. So for a project manager, it is usually that I have a charter, and this charter came against some business need or against some contract which might be coming from some external customer, and I need to develop a capability in a product or service so that requirement, that contract can be met. So this is a project view towards a requirement. But in general, we can visualize that requirements are usually met by product or service. So we develop something, or we establish some service which results into meeting the customer or a stakeholder requirements. Requirements addresses need of the business. We may want to get into a new market segment, and that's a business need. And for that, I have a set of requirements which should be implemented so that I can enable my business in that particular segment. Requirement 2 addresses stakeholder needs, that I have a requirement where I want to visualize what's happening in my project on my dashboard. And ultimately, we end up creating a set of features, set of functionality which need to be developed in a product or service, and which is again represented by way of requirement. So there are multiple dimensions or multiple levels of requirements. So in a business analysis domain, we talk about 3 types of requirement. The top type of requirement is a business requirement. So it's primarily that if I want to get if I want to get an online information, see, I'm a project delivery person, and my cycle time is increasing. So I have a requirement that I need to do something which reduces my delivery time by 50%. If I don't do it, I won't be able to compete in the market. So that's my business requirement. The stakeholder requirement could be that in order to achieve this particular need, as a delivery head, I need to get the request, the work which is delayed by more than X number of days, so that I can prioritize my attention and I can work on it. The other stakeholder may have a requirement that he talks about, that I need to have some level of notification process so that I know the new job has arrived in the queue. So different stakeholder will have different set of requirements in order to meet the reduction of cycle time. When the business analyst interact with various stakeholders, he end up making a list of these set of requirements where there could be some level of conflicts, because one requirement may get conflicted with some other head. Finally, these requirements should get converted into a solution features, that okay, I need a dashboard, and this dashboard should have this particular report, and this particular report should provide XYZ information, so that the person who wants to take a decision can take that particular action. So it's like that we are starting from a business need, then we are interacting with the stakeholders, and finally we are coming up with a solution or service and identifying the functional or a solution requirements. Now, when we talk about prioritization process, we need to figure out that how these 3 types of requirement and how the requirements can be prioritized so that we can deliver the work. Now, prioritization process, as we define it, it is something, a way of ranking one requirement against another requirement. So if we have 4 things to do, how do I identify that which one is the most important out of these is 4? So a process which helps us in identifying it is a prioritization process. Why do we prioritize? Now, many times in a traditional thinking, especially when the project manager comes up with a project, gets a project charter, usually our intention becomes that, okay, we have to meet all these requirements, and since we have to meet all these requirements in X number of days, what is the point of prioritizing? We can just make a project plan and deliver all. But there is a rarely enough time and money to implement all the requirements. First, before the project charter came, there is a good amount of prioritization has already done. But even after the project, inside the boundary of a prioritization, there could be 100 requirements which stakeholder can come up with, and you can't provide them given your project constraints. The constraints are usually imposed by way of money and time. So we need to produce some results in 3 to 6 months, whatever the time constraint has been given to you. And in order to implement that, in order to meet that, you end up doing prioritization. And it's better to do a prioritization early in the project development phase than assuming that everything can be done and later on identifying that there is a good number of things which has to be moved out. So when we talk about prioritization process, it is all about what all criteria, what all factors we should be considering when we do a prioritization of our project requirements. When should we do it? At what frequency we should be getting into these kind of discussions, conversations, analysis, which leads to a prioritization? who should be doing it. Now, in case of a Scrum implementation, we end up saying, okay, product owner does it. In case of non-agile environment, we may not have a clear authority who does this particular prioritization. But even in case of an agile implementation, you rarely have a one person who can decide what is the right priority. So you end up identifying set of stakeholders who would be playing role in this particular prioritization process. So as a part of a prioritization process, you end up identifying those people. You may end up identifying responsible, accountable, support, consult, inform kind of metrics for this particular prioritization goal. There is also a part of how, like how are you going to prioritize? Will you conduct workshops? Will you conduct surveys? Will you ask questions? What kind of tools and techniques you would be using in order to achieve a prioritization of particular requirement? So when we talk about prioritization process, or when we talk about prioritization planning, we need to think about these dimensions for a given project or for a given requirement phase. Now this prioritization process gets impacted by type of life cycle we are using. So what is life cycle? It helps us in binding the project phases, and project phases represent a type of activities which is intensive during that particular duration. So if we have an adaptive life cycle, which means that requirements are changing very frequently and we are doing progressive elaborations, where we don't have a very detailed ahead like long duration planning. It's an adaptive life cycle. In case of a predictive life cycle, the project is working in an environment where we can predict what's going to be next. Usually the predictive life cycle works where we are doing similar type of projects where we have established a baseline data which can help us in projecting in the next set of activities with a fair certainty. So if you have a predictive life cycle, your prioritization would be an upfront activity. During the initial stage of project planning, you would be doing lots of requirement prioritization. In case of adaptive life cycle, since things are evolving iteration on iteration, and iteration could be a weekly, 2 weekly, or a 3 weekly event or a time box, you keep doing prioritization progressively. So it's like continuous prioritization happening for the set of requirement which you have taken for a given project. So the frequency, like I was talking about in a previous slide, get impacted, and approach is impacted by the life cycle you are using for your project delivery. In general, whenever we do prioritizations, these set of variables always play a role. What value are we delivering by implementing that feature? What if we don't delay this feature? What is the cost of delay, or what is the cost of not delivering it? Or what is the cost of delaying this particular feature? So if the cost of delay is high, it's better to deliver that particular feature soon. So the value plays as a big role. What is the cost of delivering it? Now you may think that how do I estimate a cost of a individual feature? Now the size of your work, which you might be doing in a function point, use case point, or a story point, is a good proxy variable of your cost. So that also plays a significant role, that how big the work is. If something giving more value and it is taking less time, you may do that soon. What kind of risk are you avoiding by implementing or by doing this requirement early, or what opportunities you are exploiting by doing these particular things early? So opportunity, like you may want to judge the customer behavior, you may want to acquire customer by implementing this feature, and later on you can serve them. So risk and opportunity also plays a role when we do a prioritization. Learning is something like I'm unsure about this particular feature, or I'm not sure about a customer behavior. So if I implement some part of it, I can learn about it. So like in a lean startup concepts, we keep talking about that in a product development, a lot of time we do a lot of assumptions. And it's good if we implement, if we try those hypotheses in a real market, and we know early that this hypothesis is not true. so we can change our direction and move into a more productive directions. So many times the learning need, the uncertainty also ends up impacting the prioritization of a requirement, and regulatory always play a role. Sometimes you may have a regulatory obligations that this product has to be compliant with XX standard by this particular date, else government will not let you sell this particular product. So that sometimes you can look at in a value term also, but regulatory factors may also result into impacting your prioritization. Now, when I was talking about that, okay, you need to think about a value of a given feature. Now, you may think that, okay, value means money, and how do I estimate that a given feature will give me how much dollar? Because product will get sold in a one unit. People would be visiting my website and they would be exploring all those features. So how do I calculate the value of an individual feature? So the value calculation varies. When we are at a business need requirement level, we calculate value using financial terms. We do kind of a business case assessment for a given set of requirement. So business needs or business requirements are big requirements. They are not small features like I want to have a search feature or I want to have a notification features. They are like I want to have a system which can monitor my cycle time. Or I want to have a system which can give me a information about my say customer satisfaction level. So such kind of business needs are big needs, and they do have a business case associated with them, and we do a lot of financial calculation in order to identify which business requirement should be done and which business requirement should be dropped. So we use detailed financial calculations or a lightweight business calculations in order to prioritize business requirements. When we come to a stakeholder requirements, people keep putting lot of expectation, lot of need from your system. Then we can use various filters. We can use filters like, is it aligned with the business need we are working for? Is this requirement testable? Is this requirement is coming like a wish or it's a need? So we can put those kind of filters, and further we can use some of the models which are used for solution requirements. Now, finally, when we have an individual solution level features, we end up using a process which does take care of a factor like value, cost, risk, learning, but at a solutioning level, the value may not be dollar value, but value could be a point value that, okay, I feel this is more valuable than the other feature. Now, this feeling may be justified on the basis of the expert judgment of an individual, or you may have some comparative analysis to substantiate the ranking of those value. So point I wanted to make from this particular slide is that as the business, as the requirements are changing, requirement type is changing, your prioritization process is also changing. So this is our first Q&A break segment, and you can type your queries in the chat box, and I would be putting 2 polls to get an idea what we have achieved by now. So which of the following is not a characteristic of a requirement? So great. So most of you have selected that that requirement does not get into the implementation approach. Now, implementation approach is something which is left on the solutioning team. It is requirement is primarily focusing on what I need from a product. What is my business or a stakeholder need, and rather than getting into the details of how it should be achieved. Until unless you have some technical constraints, like if you are working in an environment where the software should be written by using some particular language or some particular database, in those cases you may have constraint imposed on your implementation approach, but requirements are usually not talking about, it's away from implementation, it's more on the need of the stakeholder or business. So we have a good number of questions which I need to take, and I hope they will generate good interaction as well. So let's finish 2 more polls before I get there. So which of the following is least affecting the requirement priority? Now this could be a controversial question also, because I don't have a right answer for it, but I may have my own view. So I know value cost is pretty easy to judge, but yeah. Okay, I'm closing and I'm sharing with you. Now many of you have, the majority of you have selected team skills. Is not usually used as a part of requirement prioritization. I'm not sure about the stakeholder attitude as well. Sometimes you may think that if stakeholder are aggressive, if stakeholder wants things fast, it may impact your requirement prioritization, may not. So value and cost is primarily definitely the impact your value prioritization process. Now team skill, for example, you don't have a capability of delivering it. So sometime you may end up looking at the requirement that, okay, I need this particular feature, but we don't have capability of doing it. So they may also becomes a kind of constraint while you are doing a prioritization. But in general, you are right that when we do a judgment, when the stakeholder put a rank, they primarily focused on value, cost, and the way they look at the things, rather than visualizing and thinking about what kind of team we have in our organization. Great. Final one. And this could be again controversial. So who does the requirement prioritization? Okay, so time to close this particular poll. And yeah, we do have results. So result is kind of mixed, product owner versus it's a joint effort. Now I know many of you are working in an agile environment, and we think that product owner, who is a designated role in a Scrum Master, is responsible for doing prioritization. But it's rarely a single mind process. Even if I'm a product owner, I need to take a final call, but I need to know how my customers take that particular requirement. I need to conduct survey. I need to figure out expectation from my stakeholders so that I can take the priority. In majority of the cases, you have multiple stakeholders playing role when the requirement prioritization happens. In majority of the cases, finally, maybe the product owner may have a final call on it. You may have a designated authority who takes the final call on it, but in majority of cases, it's a joint effort, and it requires good amount of conflict management and good amount of analysis before you can arrive to a final prioritization. From a software developer point of view, it looks very simple that, okay, we will get a prioritized requirement list. But in real sense, this is something which defines your success or a failure for a project, because if wrong prioritization, it can result into a wrong solution. So now we have a set of questions. Now there is a question coming: is it okay to have all must user stories in a release? What is the team member Scrum Master responsibility? So Sojanya, we will be discussing it in a next segment. Okay, for prioritization, is there any significant factor which is not covered in WSJF? So Syed is asking one particular technique of prioritization, which is called WSJF, which is called weighted shortest job first. Maybe this also we flag it for the next discussion, because we have not yet discussed the tools. So it's a second segment questions. The another question is coming is, apart from a business stakeholder and a solution requirement, there is also a requirement called transition requirement. The question is true. Yes, the transition requirement is also there, but I have not considered it in a way, because transition requirements are temporary requirements which are only needed when we want to move from one system to another system. Like there should be a parallel system, there should be a backup of a database. So such kind of requirement comes. But in order to visualize the need, it's more about business stakeholder and solution transition is something which is moving to once we have a solution requirement, then only we can think of a transition requirement. So that's why I didn't pick that part in this particular presentation. Now, does it this particular presentation requirement prioritization is more focused on only agile project? It's not necessary to be true, because in case of any project, even a predictive lifecycle project, also you need to do a requirement prioritization. Until unless you have very fixed specifications which are coming from the government or which are coming from your stakeholders, and you just need to develop it, then you may not have a prioritization process, or the prioritization process looks not that effective. But especially when you are working in a new product development or a new type of project, you end up prioritizing your requirements. So even if it's non-agile project, still it remains relevant. Who does prioritization depend upon environment you are executing project, isn't it? So yeah, so this is a right point. So we had a questions like who does prioritization. So there are two views. So one view is saying that business analyst has no say in a requirement prioritization. That's a one view. The another view is coming that it depends upon an environment. So actually it depends upon an environment, and you won't have a single person who takes the responsibility of doing it. Now, why we think that business analyst plays a key role in it? Because many times we visualize business analyst as a person who just write a requirement document or use case. But in general, the term business analyst is used for even for the people who identify business needs. So the business analyst is primarily a role where he facilitate that things. He provide the necessary data which can result into a right prioritization. So it is like he analyze the priorities, he figure out what are the implications of picking some requirement or not picking some requirement. So that is why the business analyst is kind of a facilitator or conductor of requirement prioritization process. Don't map it to a business analyst who sit with you in a development floor. Just pick up as a role. And many times, like many of you are working as a project manager, and PMI keep talking about that when the project manager does this kind of job, they consider him doing business analysis. So the designation might be a project manager or a product owner or a vertical head, but when he's doing this thing, he's working like a business analyst. So who does the final responsibility? It again depends upon environment, and this should be defined in your business analysis plan, requirement management plan, or a project management plan. So who takes the call? That is why we spoke about what would be the requirement prioritization process. So it can be confusing, and in order to make it clean, we need to have a requirement management plan who elaborates it. So in a requirement management plan, as per PMBOK, we need to tell what are the criteria we would be using and who takes the final call. Who does the business case? Now, this is again okay. I missed the question. So who does the business case? Again, the role may look about a business analyst again. So what is business case? Business case is that you have a business requirement and you want to figure out, does it really make sense to solve this particular business requirement? Will we make money out of it? Will we make more money out of this solving this problem than the other problem? So what is the expected cash inflow and outflow? These all kind of things goes into a business case, and designated business analyst plays a big role in it. Now in organizations, those people may get recognized at portfolio people. So at a portfolio level, when you do analysis, when you figure out what makes more sense, is something which is happening at a business case level. So business analysis done at a portfolio level. So that would be the answer for it. So again, the question is coming that project manager has a say in prioritization of a requirement. Again, it depends upon an environment. Many times, project managers are only focused on executing or implementing something which has been given to them. But in many organizations, there is an expectation from a project management from realizing the business need. So, for example, my business need was I want to reduce my cycle time by 50%. I want to deliver fast. And in your environment, if you as a project manager is responsible for not only implementing the feature but meeting this business need, can we like by doing this particular solution, I'm using the word solution, which may involve software, organization change, process change, we should be meeting the need of reducing the cycle time. If you are responsible and accountable for that, then you do play a role in prioritization. Now, this is another question, which is an interesting one. I know that many interesting question coming from PBA point of view. So we have many PBA students. So there is a term called project requirements and quality requirements. And as per PMI practice guide, these two are not part of business analysis domain. And so what are they and how they are out of business analysis domain? Now, project requirements are project specific requirements, like you should be submitting status reports. Now get back to the question which was related to project requirements and quality requirements. See, project requirements are project specific requirements, like you need to be delivering training for 10 days, you need to provide support for 20 days, you should be submitting 10 documents, you should be following up with our vendors. These all are project requirements which are on top of your product requirements. So product requirement is something that the characteristic or a feature which would be part of your output. And there are other term which is used as quality requirement, again a PMBOK term, which talks about that what quality specific matrices you would be following in a given project. What quality related things you would be doing in that particular projects are quality requirements. So in a business analysis domain, we talk about functional requirement, non-functional requirement. They are the one which are primarily a focus of business analysis, which is again driven from a business need and stakeholder requirements. Okay, so good. So do we also prioritize technical requirements or solution requirements? Will business need be evolved? So answer is yes. You end up prioritizing technical requirements as well. Yes, we are recording it and hopefully this would be available to you very soon. Okay, there are few more questions. So many of you might be feeling, okay, there are so many, but these are the important part of this particular webinars, because that helps in identifying. So the question is coming, can we put some light on prioritizing the regulatory requirements? So for example, in India, there was a time when the government made a statement that going forward, all cars has to be Euro 3, Euro 2, Euro 4 compliant. And if you are not compliant, you can't sell it. So it's priority. Many times the project teams who are working in a regulatory environment, they end up having such kind of needs. So the priority may come because the government is putting kind of a block. It's a kind of a constraint on you. If you don't comply, you won't be able to sell it. Now, the another question came is that do we designate the top authority for approval of prioritization in a charter or initiating? So that's a very important segment. In a business analysis plan, the term PMI PBA use, and traditionally we have been using requirement management plan. We need to identify the requirement prioritization process and authority. And it's good if we develop consensus, but we need to have a defined requirement prioritization process. Now, in many organizations, it looks like, okay, if the boss is saying it's true. Now, it is kind of a default enterprise environmental factor which results into a default prioritization process. But in general, you can visualize it that yes, we have accepted that authority, and that is why he is taking the final call related to prioritization. So that is something which is again coming to in another question. Okay, that's an interesting question. So where is the Scrum Master stands in prioritization of requirement? As far as a Scrum role, he needs to coach the product owner to do prioritization right. So if he needs to talk about that, are you considering the business values when you are prioritizing? Are you using the right process for prioritizing the requirements? So Scrum Master role is primarily coaching the product owner to do a right prioritization if he is not doing it. Okay, a final question for yes. Is the difference, what is the difference between cost of delay and cost? So cost of delay is more to do with the benefit, and cost is more to do with the development. So if I develop a website, how much does it cost? So I want to launch a job site, say. So launching the money I spend in launching the website is my cost. Cost of delay, if I don't launch it next month, how much I would be losing per day is my cost of delay. So if I lose, and the losing of that money can be calculated on the basis of the amount of revenue I was expecting per day, the opportunity cost I am the competitor taking because I am delayed. So those factors plays a role when we calculate the cost of delay. So cost of delay is more to do with the benefit, whereas cost is about spending money. So in general, when we talk about requirements, yes, we talk about project requirement only, Kavita. So that is what we can think of. Okay, final question. So how project manager add value for prioritizing the requirement, because project manager needs to see some other aspect of the project too. Again, it depends upon the environment. Now, you are just an implementation person, or you are there to realize the value. Many times, and this is a very like controversial discussion. What is the responsibility of a project manager? Is he only responsible for delivering the scope which has been baselined, or is he responsible for delivering the business need or meeting the business need for which the project has been initiated? So if you think that project manager is responsible for realizing or solving the business problem for which the project has been initiated, he needs to be involved. He needs to be taking responsibility and accountability for the complete evaluation of your solution. If so, it depends what level of responsibility has been put on that particular person. It's not necessary that he would be doing it on his own. It's more about it's more about how do I ensure that my team takes the right factor in account, which are aligned with my business need. So this is focusing on. Now, so I am getting question is that it looks like that my language and everything is aligned with IT projects. Now, if we look at this particular prioritization process, even if you look for PMI, PBA process guides, it is more about new product development. And you may find especially the business analysis domain which we talk about, is too much influenced by new product development, which could be an IT or software industry, or any new product development could be a mobile phone. Now, so even if you are creating a hardware product, you have various factors, various dimensions which you need to take care of. You may give a more importance to a camera, you may give a more importance to a battery life, you may give a more importance to the style of that particular product. So many times you have a very tight specification which needs to be met, which are imposed by regulatory also. So in those segments, how do you prioritize them? And the prioritization is primarily based on what value I deliver. So that is how it goes towards. Okay, so let's move forward, and we can have some queries. I think will be get answered when we move into the next segment of it. So we had a good discussion related to what is this prioritization is all about. Now we are getting into how part of it. How do we do it? What are the tools, techniques which helps us in doing this particular prioritization? So first, I am looking at business level prioritization, which is influenced by financial value. So how do we define? Now we can visualize it that we are at a epic level, at a business case level, and you as an organization, just think of, you are thinking of two options. One option is that should I start delivering desktop service, like there are a lot of homes, people are looking for repairing their maintaining their particular desktop by way of maintaining the antivirus, taking regular backups, etc., etc. Why? Because I want to earn more money, because I want to get into that particular segment. So this is a particular type of service launch you are thinking of. Now here there is no software involved, here is no product development involved, but the launching of a service may involve various steps like hiring people, setting up a customer support system, marketing that particular product, and expecting some revenue out of it. So does it make sense? You need to look at how much money I can make out of it. So money could be depending upon your problem. In this particular problem, I am looking for a new revenue because I am not doing it. It could be from an incremental revenue that, okay, I already have a printer management, printer service staff. If I start doing desktop, it's like increase my revenue. It could be a retained revenue that if I don't launch a desktop service, my printer people will move to some other vendor, because there are other vendors who are providing integrated service. So the service which takes care of printer as well as the desktop. So I need to see from where my money can flow in because of this particular product launch or a service launch. It could be cutting costs. So in this particular example, we are not considering that thing, but in other case, for example, I want to reduce my cycle time, or I want to reduce my development cost by 50%. So if I launch a new way of operating by way of automating 50% of my job, I can increase my operational efficiency. So these could be the dimension which helps you to visualize what financial value you can get out of this particular initiative. Now these are initiatives which you want to implement by way of project. Now these financial values will be always an estimated value. You may think that who will forecast them? How do we know that how many clients we will get every day? So at a portfolio level, that is where the question also came. We need to have some modeling, some mechanism where we look at market size, where we look at how others are selling this particular product, where we look at our strength and weaknesses, that how much money we can make out of this particular service. So but there is no crystal clear projected number, but you do put a forecast. In order to normalize that forecast, you can also multiply it by probability rate, that you may think that, okay, I will make 10 million, there's a 50% probability, but I will make 5 million with a 90% probability. So you can put those probability numbers in account when you calculate the expected financial value out of this particular business need based implementation. The problem comes when we do a financial comparison. We need to consider time value of money. Now, time value of money is a concept which talks about that we need to discount the future value on the basis of when it is flowing in. So if I'm getting money after 3 years and there is another option where I'm getting money after second year, I should have a common ground to compare these two cash inflow or outflows. How can I do it? If I the way of doing it is, let's normalize them and bring these cash inflow or outflow in today's money term. So we will discount. If I'm getting a money after 4 years, I will discount it by a discount rate which is usually equivalent to an interest rate, and we'll figure out that if I am getting 5,000 after 4 years, so if my interest rate is 10%, so in today's term, in my present value term, the value of this 5,000 is 3,424. How I calculated it? I calculated on the basis of discounting it on the basis of the period which is coming after. So why are we discussing it? Because we have estimated a lot of cash inflow and outflow based on our market research. Now these inflow and outflows are not happening on a given particular date. They are happening on a different timelines. So we need to bring them into a present term so they become comparable, so they become addable. So there is one tool which is called net present value. So if you have a multiple initiatives and if you want to compare those initiatives on the basis of net present value, you can calculate the net present value by way of summing up all future cash inflow and outflow in today's terms. So whatever money you are expecting to get and expecting to spend, you just normalize them on the basis of the interest rate or a discount rate which you have assumed and bring them in a today's term and sum them up. So you have two options. Like in case you are evaluating two business needs and you calculate the net present value of both of these business needs. If you are using net present value as a one of the criteria to prioritize is your business requirement, the requirement which has more net present value should win. Now, should you use net present value to prioritize your business requirement? That is something which you have to identify first. It is where the requirement management plan comes into the picture. Or an organization has an environment where they have a preference to one type of tool over another. So if we sum up all future cash inflows and outflows in today's term, how do we calculate today's term? By discounting them considering at a point when they are happening, and we calculate the final value that is a net present value. The another tool, so I'm sharing 3 tools in case of business level, for a business level requirement. The internal rate of return. It is rather than calculating net present value, we are calculating at what rate I'm getting money out of this particular business initiative. So if I invest here, I get 10% return. If I invest there, I get 30% return. So internal rate of return is more in a percentile term rather than on an absolute term. Net present value was coming up with a 1,000, 10,000, 1 million as a number, which is an absolute dollar number. Whereas internal rate of return is more about what percentage return I get it. How do I calculate it? So at a point, at an interest rate where my cash inflow and outflow becomes equal, that is my internal rate of return. So if I am investing 2,000 and I'm getting 4,000 after say 2 years, so I need to figure out that what would be the interest rate if I get 2,000 of 1,000 in 2 years. And that interest rate is internal rate of return. So what does it mean? at what particular discount rate 2000 becomes equal to 1000, and that's an internal rate of return. The another tool which can be used for comparing those business level initiative is a payback period. So payback period is more to do with like when I'm getting my money back. So I am investing X million, and when can I get my X million back? It's a time dimension. So how many months, how many years, how many days does it take to get my money back? So that's a payback period. So in general, like we prefer the business initiatives where the net present value is high. We prefer the business initiatives where the internal rate of returns are high. We prefer the business initiatives where the payback period is short. Now, this can be combined in a one particular framework also. Like somebody was asking that can we use WSJF for it, weighted shortest job first. So the weighted shortest job first will be taking value divided by the job size. So in a way, it is taking NPV, which is a fair reflection of value. We can also consider some of the values which are about losing the opportunity, and the payback period is more to do with getting the return, whereas WSJF is the duration which we use in case of a WSJF is more to do with how much time does it take to implement that particular problem. So that's a different dimension. And now I think the question will become more clear to the person who has asked that, okay, is these three things is already included in WSJF? The answer may be no. So, but there are different prioritization models which help a business analyst or a portfolio manager to visualize that which particular business initiative should be taken forward. Now, in many cases, you don't get a one winner. You may have a scenario where initiative A is giving high net present value, but initiative B is giving more internal rate of return. Because internal rate of return is percentile. You may get 100% return, but the absolute number is only $2,000. You may get 20% return, but the absolute number is 2 million. So it depends. So the organization may look at the payback period. Organization may look at the third factor or a stakeholder preference in order to identify which particular business initiative should be taken forward. A lot of time, the alignment with the organization vision and objective also plays a bigger role, because the business initiatives which are more strategic in nature, which can help organization to achieve their objectives and vision, gets preference. The second tool, we can use requirement filters. So many times we keep talking about the requirement works like a funnel. So we keep getting a lot of business initiative, or it can be used at a business need, business requirement level. It can be used at a stakeholder requirement level. So you may put various filters that is it really aligned with the business case? Is it really aligned with the business need which we are working on? Especially when you are using at a stakeholder requirement level. Is this requirement testable? So filter idea is that you may have 4 or 5 checkpoints, and whenever the requirement comes, business analyst gives ask questions or gives a ranking on the basis of those checkpoints, and the requirements which are not meeting those checkpoints, either they need to be redefined or refined, or they get rejected. So you can communicate back to the stakeholder that this filter is not passing this particular requirement. Do you want to refine it, or do you want to accept that this requirement cannot go further? So it is used when you want to do a cross-level requirement prioritization, where a lot of requirements are coming and you want to filter out many out of them. Yeah, so here comes the most frequently used functional requirement or a solution requirement type of models. So there is a Kano model of a customer satisfaction. So many of you who are our PMI PBA client, you might have already seen the video, and in PMI ACP as well. So it's an interesting model. It talks about that we can categorize requirements. So this model is primarily talking about subjective judgment of a given requirement. under categories called threshold or a must-have, linear, and exciter. So threshold type of features are those features which customer expect they should be there in a product or service. So for example, I was talking about desktop service. So when you have this particular service, customer will expect that you have a call center. If you don't have a call center which provides them a proper resolution or a facility to book their things, they may not like, they feel very bad about your service. They may not even take your service because they don't want to get into a manual operated things. They want a better handling of their calls. The linear type of features are those features which, if you put more of those features into your product or service, the customer satisfaction will increase. And the exciters are the one which customer is not expecting, but if you build into product or service, customer will feel delighted about it. So the case or a tricky point for a business analyst, so as far as prioritization is concerned, the threshold feature should be there, else customer will just walk out from your shop or from your service or from your product because it's not even meeting his basic requirements. Linear type of features, you should try to bring, you should try to put as much you can, because there will be a set of linear features. Without those, customer will not be using it. Exciters, you can prioritize them at last. You can, because customer is not expecting them. And if you have it, customer will feel delighted about it. But if you don't, they don't miss it because they were not even thinking of having that particular feature in that particular product or service. So you can have a discussion with the stakeholders. You can ask them what are their needs. You means as a business analyst or whoever is doing a requirement investigation, could be a project manager also, and categorize these features under these three categories. And stakeholder can also play a role to finalize these categorization. They're frequently used, and many of you who are agile enabled, you must be knowing about Moscow. So Moscow is something like, again, categorizing the features under must have, should have, could have, and won't have. Now, many times, business analyst, project manager, whatever name you want to give to, you end up into a situation where you have all must have feature in your product. So whatever requirement has come, and that is, I think I can also get from the interaction which I see in my Q&As, many of you are thinking that these all feature must be done. So where is the prioritization is needed? Again, it depends upon what type of problem you are solving. If I am setting up a service for my desktop management, if I implement everything and I fail, I end up losing big money. I should be doing these things progressively so I can know the market is responding. So before I make my first launch, I should implement set of features which are kind of must, and see how customer is reacting to it, rather than keep building my service for 6 months and launching it and ending up identifying that nobody is willing to give me order because I am not fitting their value proposition. So we need to have, if we think of 100,000 requirements, we need to have a priority where we can identify which are must for launch. So must-haves are type of threshold features as per our previous slide. It is something which has to be there, else customer will not be using it. Should have, they are not critical to launch, but they are important. So you may want to have a web-based tracking of your tickets raised for your desktop service. It is something maybe customer at a first point, like interaction, may not be expecting that you will give a web interface and an SMS alert as your request for desktop service is progressing. But it helps you to manage your calls well, because if you don't have that particular service, customer will keep calling you. So your call center load will start increasing. So they are good because they are important. they reduce your workload, but you can still launch without them. You may be doing some extra features, but you can still launch the service without it. Could have are type of features which are nice to have, which can potentially be included, but not necessary, not critical for the launch of the product. Won't have is something we are identifying on the basis of what time you have for your project or a service launch, and you are deciding that in my first launch I'm not including it. I am taking my business call, and my business case does not need it, and as of now I am not working with these set of features. Multi-voting. So now we had a discussion that who decides the priority. The option which was talking about that it's a joint exercise. Many times we conduct a requirement, the team end up conducting a requirement workshop, and this requirement workshop is conducted with expert stakeholders. It's not like that every team member is included in it. The people who can think about business need are part of it, and they may have various votes. They may have you may make it as a game kind of exercise where you have like stickies with a different color, maybe red, yellow, green. Red may reflect that I forcefully believe that this feature should be included as a top, and you may give a defined set of these votes. Like one stakeholder, if you are prioritizing 100 requirement, you may give only 30 red vote to each individual, and say remaining yellow and green votes. And finally, people end up putting their priorities on the basis of their perception of the market, their understanding of the customer needs. And that helps us in generating, primarily it helps us in engaging stakeholders. So we engage them, and it results into a kind of a voted prioritization process. So many times we use a dot voting also, where we have a requirement and we ask people to put dots. So we can also give a limit of a dot that one person can and put X number of dots, and wherever he feels, whichever requirement he feels is important, he puts his dot on those particular places. So multi-voting is another way of engaging group and figuring out the prioritization out of it. So if we summarize this particular section of the presentation, we need to focus on defining the prioritization process, and prioritization tools may vary on the type of project, on the basis of the life cycle of a project or a service which you are working on, and it does has a big impact from an environment as well. And prioritization is an iterative process. Even if you are talking about predictive life cycle, until unless you have a very fixed set of requirement, you end up doing prioritization at multiple instances. So iterative means that you can't just prioritize in the beginning of the project and look at just keep them as a fixed priority for your complete project life cycle. You need to keep revisiting them. And engaging stakeholders in a prioritization process by way of involving them in categorization of must have, should have, could have, won't have, or by way of involving them by taking a multi-voting exercise results into long-term benefits, because stakeholders understand what went behind the prioritization decisions. So it does have a long-term results. So here we are at our Q&A breaks, and I have only one poll to go for, and I am here to take your queries. So I am first putting the poll. So the question is that which of the following document has financial justification for of requirements? I am closing the question. I think some of you are unable to see it, but I did get some votes, good votes. So I am sharing the result of those questions now. It is talking about that where do we store the financial justification of a requirement. So it's a business case. Now, many times we think of a business case as a very complicated and long document. It's not meant to be that complicated. You may have a lightweight business cases for your small business initiatives, but yes, if the business initiative is big, if you need to commit a lot of money and resources for it, so you may need to have a good business case for it. Business plan is more to do with an organization level initiative. So when you start a new organization, you talk about a business plan. Business case is more to do with a specific business need, and business plan is a bigger thing where you plan the complete organization. So if you are starting up a company, you will make a business plan. If you are starting up if you are thinking of implementing a requirement, you will make a business case. Okay, so here we look at some of the questions, and after this we have a segment where we will be talking on PMI, PBA related queries. So I see many of you are interested in it, but yeah. Okay, so we have few questions. So I understand there was some level of audio glitch in between. Hopefully it is done now. So now there are some suggestions coming in that, okay, we can look also at a low hanging fruits. So it could be, yeah, it depends upon the type of project you are in. For example, if you already have an existing product or service and you want to just improve it, so you may pick up the initiatives, the features, the functionalities, which can give the maximum return in the shortest time. So for example, if your desktop service is already established and your problem is that you have a lot of calls coming in, you want to launch a small website where people can just go and check their status of their service request. And it looks like a low hanging and it can reduce your call receiving volume. Yeah, so it can be used. It can be used, depend upon where are you. So, and in fact, most of these models talk about low-hanging fruit in a different dimension. Like somebody raised about weighted shortest job first. It is kind of weighting the job or a feature on the basis of ROI, like how soon we can make money out of a given functionality or given requirement is your low-hanging fruit. So another question is coming that minimum viable products need to be yet another prioritization technique. What do you think? So again, what is minimum viable product? So something like, again, it is depending upon a new product or service. So something you are launching first and something which gives a customer value, but it has a minimum functionalities. So if you look back at our Moscow or a Kano model, so it's like a product having all must-have features, which is good to launch the product, and gradually you can build on top of it. So it's again a lean startup concept where we talk about that rather than building the complete product, have a minimum viable product and take feedback in account before you take the next action. So yes, so we do use a minimum viable product in account when we are doing prioritization, and it comes as a part of your first release planning. Okay, so what if the critical stakeholders, it's an interesting question, are not prioritizing the requirement on time, and as they have no time for this, they are busy. How should we take this as a project manager, and what should we do now? Now, it needs to be seen, where are you? So I assume that this is not a case when you are into a business requirement, because business requirement, the project will not start until unless you have a right prioritization. So it is more to do with your solution requirement when you are with a functionality. And that is where the stakeholder engagement and stakeholder conflict management becomes an important exercise for anyone who is managing the product prioritization. So as a business analyst or as a project manager, you need to have those influential soft skills to get this work done. You may use some negotiation technique, you may use some escalation mechanism, you may use some way of visualization that what is an impact of not doing right prioritization and for upcoming say project duration or project phase. So there is no prescription for it, but this is an essential skill for a project manager or a business analyst that he should be able to solve this problem by way of influencing stakeholders. Okay, so Vaibhav is talking about something that as a PMI, PMBOK, PMI, PBA book, BA should only recommend the most feasible solution. Why a BA should recommend only the most valuable solution options, even though one or more other options remains feasible. So that I need to see the context, like which section and when and where it is discussed, Vaibhav. But it see, in reality, in project management or in a business analyst, there cannot be a one rule. You can't come up with that you will be only suggesting one solution. Yeah, so it could be a recommendation that you don't confuse your stakeholders if you don't have other very near competitive project solutions. So again, it's at the business need level, at the business case level, not at a solution prioritization level, I assume that. But again, you can't have a one model, you can't have a one rule. You may end up using multiple models in order to identify the final prioritization. So again, the similar question comes again, that how do we decide which parameter is more important, net present value, internal rate of return, or payback period, and how and why? Again, there is no answer to it. This is what you need to define when you make your requirement prioritization process, when you make your requirement management plan. So in general, organization has a preferences to it. They and many times one model does not give a conclusive idea. So just by looking at net present value, you may not be able to judge two solutions. So it's more about that you look at the quantum, the type of problem, and you may look at all these three parameters. So it depends because a payback period, say as a startup, for example, I can't invest in something which will give me a return after 10 years. It may be a great idea, but I need to invest 1 million today and wait for 10 years to get the money back. I won't be able to survive for 10 years. So so the organizations who are into the initial stage, they need fast returns. If you are a very established organization which is working in a sector like, which is very stable, just an example like oil and gas or something, and you may plan for 10 years. So you may plan for 10 years that, okay, I will develop this particular well and I will get some return after 10 years. So it depends, and it's case to case. True. So that is what you have. So another question is, how do we manage scope creep during requirement prioritization? So scope creep is a concept where we talk about that we keep including uncontrolled expansion of a scope. So scope creep itself is that there was no requirement and you have created something out of it. So scope creep is more to do with the change management concept. If you bring that particular change into a process, it's again a change request process. It's no more a scope creep. So prioritization is all about that you have agreement that we want to do these 10 things and you are figuring out which 3 should be done first. Scope creep is that somebody says something to you and you implement it. And those changes become so big that the impact is significant. Okay, so an interesting question. So it is more to do with PMI PBA, and we would be getting into the segment which we'll be talking about this particular certification. So the question is that financial impact seems to be beyond the business analyst. In my context, I get business need financial justifications are done at a more higher level. Is the PMI thinks to have a BA involved in a financial justification process? Now, the answer is yes. So we have 5 domains, and the need assessment domain, the first domain, is about the business need only. Sayed, audio is working. I think something is wrong in your environment. Okay, so now the answer is yes. PMI do expect that business analyst has a role to play under in a need assessment domain. Now, many of us might be starting our business analysis when we have a project charter in place and the project is already approved. But somebody must have done that need assessment part, maybe at a portfolio level. But expectation from PMI is that as a business analyst, you should be knowing what goes in, how solutions gets prioritized, how do you identify the real problem, and how do you identify the capabilities of the organizations which are needed in order to meet that particular business need. So it's needed, and it's a need assessment domain. And many times I find the PMI PBA clients who have been taking exam, this domain remains the weakest because we don't have a real life exposure of doing many need assessment related activities. So another question is coming that normally there will be a time constraint in finalizing the requirement in a very short time. So in an oil and gas projects, etc. So how do we handle them? See, the point is that if you have a very predictable environment, you can finalize the requirement fast because everybody knows that this is how it will work. And if you have an unpredictable environment, you can't finalize the requirement at all. So it's like you explore, you project something, you do something, you show it to your stakeholders, you experiment with your clients and see how they are adapting to it or how they are reacting to it. So it's a process which ultimately leads to a better requirement prioritization. So this is the only thing which you can see. Somebody says that do the requirement prioritization and give it to me by evening. You will not be able to put the desired amount of analysis into it, and the results would be like you will get a negative result for your complete project, because since you end up missing something or wrong, you end up doing some wrong prioritization because of time constraint at the initial level, whatever you develop may not give the desired value. So it's all about managing urgent and important thing. Okay, so this is how we reach to our final segment, which is all about a basic information about PMI PBA. And if you have any query related to it, we can have a conversation. And that's the final segment of this particular webinar. So we have a PMI PBA, and it is like why we are discussing it, because it's a business analysis influenced web event. So I thought of that many of you might be interested in knowing it. So I included this few slides at the end of it. So a PMI PBA is a credential which recognizes an individual's expertise in business analysis and using these tools and technique to improve the overall success of the project. Now here, the last line is important. PMI is primarily looking business analysis from a project domain perspective, because PMI charter is more to do with the project management, making organizations capable in delivering projects. So they did a research and they figured it out that good amount of projects are failing because of poor requirement management and business analysis. So they come up with that, okay, we have this certification is primarily focusing on business analysis, but which has to be used in a project context, and which helps in delivering good projects. As far as an eligibility requirement, you need to have, if you are a secondary degree, you need to have a 7,500 hours of business analysis experience. If you are a bachelor degree, you need to have 4,500 hours of business analysis experience. So which converts into 3 years, in 7,500 gets converted into 5 years. So this is the type of experience you should be having in a business analysis domain. Out of this experience, you should be working at least for 1 year, which is equivalent to 2,000 hours in a project environment. So like out of these, the 2,000 hours, you would be doing business analysis as a part of a project team. So it could be like the same 4,500 hours you have used. Part of it could be project-based business analysis. Part of it could be non-project-based business analysis. So what this non-project-based business analysis, primarily the need assessment part, can happen without project also. So when you are just visualizing the business process flow, you are identifying that where are the bottlenecks and suggesting solutions or shortlisting problems you are working in a non-project environment and still you are doing business analysis. And finally, you need to have a 35 hours of education, again the PDU in a business analysis domain. So a few more things. Cost. So it's like same like PMP. So if you are a PMI member, it will cost you $405 US. If you are not a PMI member, it will cost you $555 US. Exam format also, everything they have kept aligned with PMP. So it's like 200 questions, 4 hours. Prometric centers where you'd give the PMP exam are also authorized to take PMI PBA exam. How do you prepare? So you have a PMI business analysis practice guide. I think many of you are already referring to. So like Vaibhav and few of you have referred that particular book. So I assume that many of you have already seen it. And you may need to see a part of PMBOK as well. So like scope management, project quality management, some part of stakeholder and communication management knowledge area plays a role. Beyond that, PMI has recommended 11 more books. So including PMBOK, there are 11 books. So you can look at them as per your need. So if there is a section which is not clear to you in a business analysis practice guide, or it is not clear to you in a business analysis content outline, PMI PPA content outline, you can fall back on these particular books. And we do have a program which gives a 35 PDUs. This is about us, that we do a lot of certification programs. We run PMI ACP classroom and online program. We run a PMI PBA classroom and online program, PMP, and we also do Safe Agilist classroom and Certified Scrum Developer classroom programs. So you can get more details about us on our website, and many of you are already, I think, familiar with those details. So these are my contact details. If you have any query related to project management, PMP certification, anything, please visit our forum, forum.hisenbridge.com. We have various sections in it, and you can post your queries and we try to respond in a very short time. Usually we respond within 24 hours kind of a time frame. Okay, friends, thanks for joining in, and you can keep posting these queries in my forum. We do have a forum which is live. So there are various sections. We do have a section for PMI PBA. Even any question related to practice, preparation, anything which you feel can help you in getting your PMI PBA certificate, you can put it there. Thank you, friends. Thanks for joining in. And have a good evening, good morning, depending upon in which geography you are. Thank you. Bye.